Hi Comp2, this is your video update for this week. I hope that you all have been having a nice Wednesday so far, and I just wanted to check in with you. Just a few reminders for the week, nothing major. Thank you to all of those of you who did your homework for this week, participating in the prompt on the Discord, and then reading through the Blake lecture, the PowerPoint, and kind of just loosely responding to those Blake poems on Edmodo. Now, just a kind of differentiator, whenever I ask you to do something on Edmodo, whether it be a prompt or a quiz, that goes in your quiz/homework credit. That is not just participation credit. So just be aware, if it's on the Discord, it's just part of your percentage of participation points, and some of those can be made up as time goes on. If you don't do your homework, those points are lost and you cannot get those back. So some of you did not do your homework for this time. That's fine. That's between you and the Lord. But last semester, every time that you had like a due day, I would look through and see who hadn't done the homework yet, and I would send little individual reminders to you via RaiderNet and via Discord to help you stay on track. I just want to let you know I will not be doing that this semester. There's kind of a gradual giving of more and more responsibility for middle college students as we go from Comp 1 to Comp 2. That's why your final writing project for this course will not have a revision. The one that you turn in is the one that gets the grade, so you have to revise on your own. So just so that it doesn't come as a surprise to anybody, if you're thinking, well, last semester she told me when I didn't turn stuff in, I've not heard anything from her. Well, there's a reason for that. I kind of feel like you know the drill by now. This is very similar to the last class. And if you have a hard time keeping track of what's on Edmodo, make sure that you sign up for those notifications. And just remember that Tuesday is your day. On Tuesdays, you will always have something due in Comp 2, whether that be a quiz or an assignment or a paper or something like that. So as per usual, that schedule document that's on Edmodo, that is your Bible for the course. Just make sure you're following along with it. But TLDR, I will not be sending out individual homework reminders this time because I want you to kind of take that responsibility on for yourself. I'm ultimately not helping you at all if I handhold you through the entire middle college English experience. So I want to help you. As for this week, you're going to be reading about Robert Browning. He was a Victorian poet. And I won't talk about him too much because everything you need to know pretty much is already in the resources that I gave you. There's a biographical website. There's links to the poems, and there's recordings of the poems if you want to listen to them. There is a little blurb about the dramatic monologue. So both of the poems that you're looking at are dramatic monologue poems, and that is a genre that Robert Browning was famous for. It's a genre that he really elevated to be more memorable. It's kind of a blend of poetry and theater because he was involved in both pursuits and loved both of them. And it's very character driven, and it's about the character revealing things about him or herself that he or she may not have intended to reveal. And you kind of get to play psychoanalyst and figure out what's really going on. The sweet thing about Robert Browning is he's actually part of one of the few happy ending stories in all of English literature. It mentions this very briefly, but he was married to Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And if you've ever heard the poem that starts like this, "How do I love thee, let me count the ways," it is often read at weddings. It's a pretty well-known poem. She wrote that poem for him. She wrote actually a whole group of poems for her husband. He was a fan of hers, and he sent her like a fan letter, and they started a correspondence. And even though she was like a well-known poet, the way women's rights were in Victorian times, that honestly, as far as England, it didn't get any worse in Victorian England for women's rights, in my opinion. So she was basically a prisoner of her father, who was this total crazy man. Would not let her leave, would not let her date. Like she was already older than I am now, and she hadn't been really allowed to leave the house or date. And so they start this pen pal correspondence relationship, basically, and they fall in love with each other, even though he's a bit younger than her. And the dad refuses to let her ever marry and says that he will disown her And so Robert is basically kind of her knight in shining armor. I hate to use that term, but he's like, fine, I'll just kidnap you then. And he like goes to her house and kidnaps her and takes her away, and they get married. And she does get disowned by their dad, but she's like, bye, I don't care. And they genuinely live happily ever after. She was always told that she was an invalid, and that it was kind of like, you know, they call it Munchausen by proxy. Like, he told her that she was sick and she couldn't get out and she was ill and she was never going to be able to do anything. And she was fine. You know, after they get married, she's like, I'm pregnant. And she was like 41, which back then was really unusual. And she gave birth to their son, and they called him Penn, which I thought was cute. And yeah, they lived a really nice, happy life together. So I just like that story because you don't often get happy tales like that in this period of literature. But for most of that period, he was really mainly known as Elizabeth Barrett Browning's husband. She was the famous one in the relationship. It was only after she passed away and he was an older man that he started to get acclaim. There was a lot of work that he did that people didn't really get for a while. They thought was incomprehensible, or that maybe he, you know, just wasn't really meant for the genre. And he really hit his stride later on in life. And so you can read more about his other accomplishments, but I just want you to focus on these two poems. Like I said, it's probably considering the time of year it is and that we're leading up to Valentine's Day, these are two of the worst possible poems I could have given you. But they're really well known. They're fun for you to dig into. Like I said, when you answer the questions, you're going to pick one or the other. You don't have to analyze both poems. You're either going to go with Porphyria's Lover or My Last Duchess. I want your opinions. I don't want the internet's, because I can find the internet's myself. It's not hard for me to go to SparkNotes, and it's not hard for you to either, but please don't do that. I just want to know what you have to say. There's no wrong answers as long as you back it up. Personally, I don't care which one you do, but I just want to let you know that My Last Duchess, to me, is one of the best poems that's ever been written in the English language. That's primo stuff right there. That's quality stuff. So I hope you enjoy them. Even if you don't, I hope that you're able to get some good stuff out of it. On the Discord, I'm about to post a new prompt now, and it's a pretty simple one. It's just, since we don't get to do a whole lot with poetry because there's so much else to cover in the class, and it's a real shame, we're just going to have a poetry sharing session. And I will put the details for that on the Discord, but basically I just want you to find one poem that you like that is not a children's poem. That's my only restriction. I don't want it to be Dr. Seuss. I don't want it to be Shel Silverstein. I want it to be a poem written for adults that you like. And I just want you to share it. And you can either copy and paste it into the thread, or you can do a link. It can be anything. It can be something that you've loved your whole life, like that poem about Jesus and the footprints, and how when you look down, there was just one set of footprints, but that was when Jesus was carrying you. Or it can be something like, you can just start looking for poems right now and you can find something to be like, I like this because blank. But I want it to be a poem that was written for adults. It can be anything, and just share it. And you don't even have to analyze it. You don't even have to commentate on it. We can comment on each other's. We can kind of talk about if there's anything we like, but we don't really get to enjoy poetry very much as a culture. And so that's your only job in the Discord for this week, is find a poem that you enjoy and share it with the rest of us. If you have questions about the Robert Browning stuff, let me know. After next week, we'll start kind of a new phase in working on a project that we have. But right now, we're just talking about Robert Browning. So if you need me for anything, you know where to find me. Snapchat, Discord, Edmodo, RaiderNet email. The only way I don't want you to reach out to me is through Momentum, because remember, it will not allow me to reply to you. If you reach out to me via Momentum, it will not allow me to respond. So I appreciate you. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you for spending 10 minutes of your time listening to this video, and I hope that you have a great rest of your evening. Thank you. Bye.